Welcome back to Built to Ship, the podcast where we go behind the scenes with founders and product leaders shipping real AI products into the world. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Susan, co-founder of CareerStrong, a platform that combines expert coaching and proven career building frameworks with an AI-powered workspace. And Susan, really grateful to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. I don't get to talk as much as I would like about what I'm building and why I'm building it the way I am. So I'm kind of hungry for this. I'm excited to talk about it.
I totally get it. I think it's a common founder thing, right? We're excited about what we're doing and we care
Yeah.
about what we're building. So yeah, really, really excited to dive in. Well, why don't we start with your background? What were you doing before
Yeah.
Career Strong? How'd you get the idea?
Yeah. Well, I've actually had a history of both startups and working in large companies. And most recently, before CareerStrong, I started another company where I actually took a different approach to AI. I wasn't able to fund it, and I shifted my approach. So, for everyone who is starting a company using AI, like my heart is with you. My interests have been in consumer, although I've worked in enterprise. But my particular take on AI is actually around consumer use. So, before that, I was a CMO. Before that, I was a general manager in for Salesforce, actually for the education vertical. I've done a lot of work in education, and for any old school people, I actually oversaw the business for Dreamweaver and Flash. So I go way back to
Nice.
like the first revolution of the web and internet.
That's awesome. Any parallels
Yeah.
that you draw to what you're seeing with AI now versus what you saw back then?
A lot of parallels. I mean, there's some unfortunate parallels with hype and with everything being, the big meaning of everything. There's some legitimate parallels around the excitement of we don't even know where this is going to go. And I certainly was one of those very optimistic people about how the internet would like save the world and give us good information. Oops. But some things that are really different are really for people like us who create. If I'd had the tools that I've had even in the last year, earlier in my career, everything would have been different. And so some of the hype is very, very real. And I again, like that's why we're here to talk about it, because in fact it has absolutely changed the way we build. And I've built over 100 products. Like I've built a lot. I love the I've kind of seen a bunch of models for building products. There's never been anything like this. Thing from an originality perspective and a creative perspective of really trying to meet what people need in ways that we couldn't before.
Amazing. Yeah, and I'm sure that's
Yeah.
probably some of what you do at Career Strong is help people figure out how to
Yes.
use those tools. Where'd you get the idea
Totally.
for Career Strong, and
Yeah.
what was the journey like? So you mentioned you were doing another AI startup before. What was the
Yes.
insight of like, hey, I have a new idea and I want to make that switch?
Yeah. Well, I've been working in education for a while, specifically education to employment, right? So that idea of that path of how do people reach economic mobility, like a very big picture. And my first company, Third Road, was focused on the post high school choice. And the idea about that was there's incredible information asymmetry. People don't have good enough tools. The approaches for it don't work, but also the decisions are highly consequential. They're very, very costly. They have big implications and they're complex. And so I was really attracted to both the complexity of the decision making, the way that technology has not been well used, and the impact on people and families. I will say it's actually enormous. And I could see, like many other people could, that we have a crisis with higher education. So it really moved me. Now, my solution for that involved actually agentic AI. It involved a full stack. It was beautiful and it was expensive. It would have been expensive to build. And so what I found was, yeah, it was really challenging to raise. And I've raised funds before for companies. So it was really challenging around consumer AI. There's a lot of reluctance around ed tech, which, hey, I understand having worked in it. And so I looked for a way I could bootstrap. And that really shifted me both in terms of the problem I wanted to solve, which I moved to really just economic mobility, career. So Career Strong is about career navigation. It's about empowering individuals to self-determine their own paths and giving them the tools to do it. So it wasn't that far of a leap. It was a shift because it was something I knew could be solved in a different way. And then I did something else that, as a software developer, I like, at first I was like, this is cheating, but I built on Notion. And I built on Notion very, very deliberately. I'm a huge fan of it. And it fit what it needed to be for a product market fit. So I didn't grab it because I didn't want to use anything else. I found my way to it and I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need to be building on.
Yeah, that's a great insight that you just shared there. And like a lot of founders are technical and they want to go build in like Rust or the most like the coolest,
Yes.
language that's, but really at the end of the day, it's, can you put a product or an MVP in front of a customer and see that delight? And so makes sense why you might make that decision to build in Notion or whatever other,
Yeah,
tool you can. When it comes
exactly. And
to, oh, sorry, go for it.
oh, I was just going to say, when it comes to a beautiful system architecture, like I swoon like anyone, okay? Like I got it. But it's true that, the closer you get to what people need, especially again, I'm looking at consumer. In a consumer context, there are different types of things we need to think about around both the use of things. The number one thing that really concerns me that is new and novel, sadly, is the kind of stack you need for privacy and security for consumers. That is not a easy build. I'll just be like, not if you take it seriously, not if you know what you're doing. And it was one of the reasons too that I looked at. And then I will also say Notion is very special. It's just very, very special as a platform, the way that it's configured and the way that a creative product developer can use it. I think it's actually quite underused. Not that
That's
anyone
great.
else should copy me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. When it comes to your customer base, your target user, you
Yeah.
mentioned for the previous company you were focused on people like leaving high school. Who's
Yes.
the intended user for CareerStrong?
Mhm. We do actually serve some current college students, a lot of recent grads who can't find jobs. But the real kind of segmentation that we use is behavioral. It's not about age or stage. It's, are you someone who's looking to take your next move? Are you trying to pivot, move into a new area? Do you feel stuck? And do you want strategy over tactics? Are you looking for quick hacks? Because if so, lots of people will sell you those and they don't work, and we're not that. So our signature program is a 6-week accelerator program, and at the end of it you have built a career dashboard, you've built a tremendous number of tools. And the idea there is, and this does go back to education, is building capacity. Another thing that's novel that we do is it's not a subscription model, it's a one-time purchase. And the idea behind that, again, from a consumer standpoint, is I pay you once, I learn all the tools and the skills, and then I can manage it myself forever, because you need to. Careers are not everybody switches jobs every 10 years thing anymore. Like,
Yeah,
you're going to need those career tools the next time you get laid off. Like,
totally.
it's terrible, but it's so true right now.
Yeah, no, and I think you're definitely tapping into a problem that I hear all the time. I talk to a lot of young folks, have, family friends who are about to graduate college. We have interns that we
Yeah.
interview, and it's a tough market out there, even with people who have like advanced computer science degrees from great universities to
Yeah.
folks who, maybe want to go into, some other field. So, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's very timely what you guys are building. Let's shift a
Yeah.
little bit into the sort of AI architecture,
Hmm.
if you will.
Hmm.
A lot of people have talked about how to use ChatGPT to be more productive or how you write emails with it, etc. We're less interested in that, on this podcast. There's a lot of material out there. We're really curious for
Yeah.
people who are actually using AI within their product. So in your workspace, for
Yes.
example, what's your general like number of agents or number of prompts or
Hmm.
number of use cases where an
Sure.
LLM is doing something? Like, what are those types of use cases and how do
Hmm.
you think about where to apply LLMs across your product?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start really big picture and then get really specific. The big picture is the way in which we use AI. We're actually kind of partnering the AI mechanic of, maybe it's pattern recognition, maybe it's deeper analysis, maybe it's quick insight, with a psychological mechanic. Because a lot of what's happening when you're developing career, it's about self-awareness or about agency or about even research. So at a big picture, we're actually using technology and human together. It's one of the really important aspects. One of the reasons for that is, when it comes to consumer use of AI, trust and transparency is essential. And frankly, we do decision making with AI. And in terms of decision making and consumers, the only AI I've really seen anyone working with is to help people purchase things better. So we're looking at a very different mechanic at a big picture. So what does that mean? Well, there's a bunch of things. One is that we're LLM agnostic. And I think that's really important because we all see it, right? All of us are using different LLMs. And each time we're like, ooh, that was better for that. So one, we're agnostic. Two, all of the prompts are transparent. The prompts are actually set up as cut and paste intentionally. Notion has AI functionality. I don't want black box, and I don't think anyone should. I actually think that we are still in an age where you need to retain that control over your own voice. We were talking about your career, right? This is about yourself, your self identity. You should have as much control as possible. So throughout the program, our flagship program is about 6 weeks. I think I mentioned there's over 60 prompts, but they're not just a prompt. It's within an exercise, within a context of building a skill. There's a guided process to lead you through it so that you can use that insight and you can repeatedly use it. So one example, and this will be very familiar based on what you were talking about with anybody who's been looking for a job. We all know you can, take a resume, take a job description, throw them into AI and come out with like the resume that's been written for the job description. Well, you're right. Everybody knows that. And that's why it doesn't work anymore. It's flooded applicant
Yeah.
tracking systems, right? So that system doesn't work, but it's not that AI isn't good for it. It's that in general, there's a bunch of things wrong with it. But the biggest thing, again, I'll speak to my developers out there, is that you don't have the source code. When you match a resume with a job description and that resume has been whittled down to that one page, well, you're not giving AI enough to be able to highlight transferable skills, to build the language that it needs. So in our program, one way that we use AI, we take your existing resume, we extrapolate and build it against whatever your target role is. And then we have, and this is another thing, we have a modular system where you can use that source code and specific prompts, and you can customize your resume, cover letter, interview prep for any single role with extremely high quality. So it's a system to be able to do this. Now, what I just mentioned there, you can see how AI is a tool. Another thing I'll say that I see a lot for consumer is almost the over attention to AI. We need technology that's not just AI. We live with software that can do incredible things. And so another thing that we do is AI is woven within. I mean, we essentially have a mini CRM built with, no, essentially we do. We have a
Mhm.
mini CRM built within what we're doing. So the way in which we're using AI is all very focused on the benefit for the user, how they can learn from it and how they can reuse it, and how and why they should gain trust in it. So after 6 weeks, our participants are actually quite skilled in using AI from that general purpose consumer perspective. Of course, we aren't doing coding, but they're wicked smart with how to use it to be able to create very high quality insight or professional materials or something in between.
That's great. So if I can summarize, it's, you're trying to kind of teach them to fish, not just, hand them the fish. So it's like, hey, throughout this process, they're going to get the experience of seeing transparently what is the prompt that gets you to what you're really looking for when you're creating this resume or, this job application. And they can tweak it, they can, customize it and get experience with like what they get out of doing that. Does that sound right?
Exactly. And one other thing that's really important is we teach them not to trust it. I mean, and I mean that in
Yeah,
a nice
totally.
way, right? Like you
Yeah.
cannot take the output from a generative AI tool that's meant to represent your voice and not review it closely. And it seems kind of dumb, like everybody says that, but I see it over and over again. And to your point of highly educated, highly educated people, we are a cynical bunch and we still do it. So there's something really important. And this is actually where the human part comes in. Everything I'm telling you is facilitated by a career strategist, by someone who's expert. So we don't let you just take that answer. We're going to ask you questions about it and going to make sure that you know what you're doing with it. And so, yes, it's teaching them to fish, but also teaching them, I don't know, make sure that was a fish you caught.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point, and that really leads into a
Yeah.
topic that's been coming up a lot recently from our audience, which is the idea of evals. And I think they're
Yes.
very, it's a buzzword in the community right now, and most of what people associate that with is using another LLM to judge an output of an LLM. But really, the
Yes.
term is broader than that. I think you're actually getting to humans can do evaluation, right? And it's so maybe tell us a bit about how do you guys think about evals? Are those woven into your platform at all, or is that woven into the
Mhm.
training itself?
Yeah, it's woven more into the product development process than it is that a consumer would see it. But there's actually an article in today's New York Times, today being December 3rd, about the quality of writing and about the history of how writing has changed with generative AI. And what the author points out over and over again is that anybody who reads content frequently can already tell. They can tell what the problems are in terms of the patterns and the language. That kind of subtlety is actually what we're going for. So the idea of having an LLM evaluate another LLM's output is missing something really important. And and I don't know actually how I would say I'd ever fully automate it. In my case, with 60 prompts, honestly, it's not a lot. It's not a lot to be able to build those evaluations. And then we've been having paying customers since June, even though we're not about to launch. Every customer, every circumstance, I learn a different way to be able to test those and to make sure that they're actually giving the right kind of output. So again, in a consumer context, one of the challenges is what are all of your potential variables, right? What are all the things people could bring to that conversation? And we're talking about self-identity, right? These are and voice, right? These are very personal things. So the eval process it's more complex, but it's also kind of delightful. Like it's like I wouldn't if you try to automate it, it's exhausting. No,
Yeah.
but from the standpoint of being deeply curious about people and technology, which I bet a lot of your listeners are, like we love this stuff, right? It's so interesting. And so I'm actually very glad to be where I am with evals, even though I see and I read all the things I'm like, I understand, I get it. I'm not
Yeah.
doing that. I'm doing something different, but it's because I really think it's where we are with consumer AI. I mean, I don't mean consumer AI like in a one shot kind of thing. I mean really using AI as a tool that genuinely can improve people's lives. And that's my goal. My goal is economic mobility for people. And so,
Yeah.
when with that kind of stake, the idea of an automation doesn't work, but the highly personalized, very specific process and multiple evaluations against prompts, yeah, that does work.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things I want to pull out from what you just said that are really important. I want everyone to like kind of capture. Number one is like, I think, as engineers and technologists, people always want to move towards automation. There's certain things
Yeah,
that you can't fully automate, and it's
yeah,
not a good idea to automate. So,
right.
and the concept of an eval isn't just an LLM doing something. It can be a human. It can be important for you to know. There's a reason that when you talk about product, it's like talk to your customers, see what they actually want. And so this eval is an opportunity to, in your case, to have them use a prompt, get their feedback, and then decide,
Mhm.
oh, I didn't think, they were going to ask that question that way or use
Right.
this prompt in that way. And I think a lot of people another thing you hinted at is this difference between offline and online evals, which are the terms that people like to use nowadays. You can sit in a room and set up a bunch of tests that you think are good to test your prompt, and you can assume what users are going to do with your product. Then you go and put it in front of them. They do something completely different and you didn't expect that. And so you can't just sit in a room and create this like list of 100 evals that are going to completely give you 100% accuracy for every use case. You need to ship it to customers. You need to see
Yeah.
how they're going to use it, and then you need to adapt the product itself, and then also your testing, your evals. So
Yes.
I think those are great call outs that you shared there with your specific anecdotal story. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. And there are things that are complex about the consumer use of AI, but for people who love to build, that's one of the reasons I'm still so optimistic about AI, because I see it. I see it actually changing people's lives in the way that they think about themselves and the way they think about their future. And so, as cynical as I can be, as someone who comes from this industry, and I
Yeah.
can be cynical, I still feel that sense of of delight, of hope. And again, as a product developer, I'd say to everyone else, like, don't ever lose that. Like, love what you do,
Yep.
because then the joy of like, oh wow, that did not work the way I expected is awesome. Right. You're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, like that didn't work. Now I can go do something else and I can figure out why it didn't. And I think that's really we call it evals, but okay, QA is kind of like a thing, okay?
Yeah,
Like it's
totally.
not a new idea, right? So,
Exactly. Yeah.
and QA at the heart of it has always been about, are you actually meeting the customer where they are? And so I've just kind of extrapolated that to like a consumer context with a technology, honestly, that's still maturing for the ways in which we're using it.
Totally. And before we start to wrap up, last question on this eval system. You mentioned you have 60 or so prompts and you're mostly evaling like, the product development process. What's your framework for how you eval? Is there a tool you use? Is it, have you written your own custom code to do that? Is it just a human process where I have this procedural steps? How do you guys actually facilitate those evals across those 60 plus prompts? I may have lost you. I'm not sure if it's my
And
internet. Uh,
uh,
so,
my internet seems to be cutting out.
okay, sorry. Do you mind repeating that?
Sure. Um, it's very, very manual right now. I don't use a tool. I track very simply. I use Notion to do it. But the reason I do that is because there's still so much that I'm learning from that process that I don't want to get too far away from it. And in my mind, 60 prompts is not much, honestly. Like I can manage it at that level. So again, it's a benefit of the way that I've architected and thought of the product. I don't know that would, I know that won't work for other people, but I'm kind of lucky in that way that the manual process is exactly what I need to be able to really check the effectiveness of what we're doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what's the process itself? Is it you get the users, you see how a user like use the prompt, you see the output, you have like a thumbs up or thumbs down from them? Do you go and call them and ask them about it, and then you log it in a spreadsheet in Notion? Like what's the process?
Well, one thing I forgot to mention that is important is I develop personas based on different types of customers. So I do use real, true customer feedback, but then also based on the coaching and the customers that I've met with, I'll create composite personas that represent things that I find are those edge cases. And I'll run prompts through my personas as well as through looking for a particular type of output or a problematic output that I'm getting and trying to isolate what's happening in the prompt to drive it. So I track in Notion. Yeah, I use a database because the whole product's a database, series of databases. But again, what I mean by it being so manual is you can imagine what that process looked like. Not every prompt needs a persona to specific to it. It depends on what exactly we're asking AI to do. And some things that we're asking for they're more complex and more nuanced, and honestly, they're more ripe for error. As opposed to others where it's like it's using a classic LLM pattern. Oh yeah, it's going to give you back exactly what you need. So that's the other thing too, is that they're not all equally important to get to have that level of specificity.
Totally.
But there are some prompts, yeah, I've run through. And I also don't have like a formal process of how many times I do it. It's
Yeah.
very still really organic.
hmm Awesome. No, I think that's
Yeah.
important. People, we see all these articles and, these buzzwords around like how evals and how you're automating thousands but actually most people we talk to, it's what you're saying. It's being close to the customer. It's being curious about how they're using the product. It's
Yeah.
about putting in the time and direct manual work of looking at their conversations or
Yeah.
testing out different scenarios, and you actually get a lot of value out of that. So I think people shouldn't be embarrassed that if they have a process that's not perfectly defined or manual, and you're a
Right.
great example of that, how it's serving you guys well in
Yeah.
your product development process. So that's exciting.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And thank you for bringing me on because I do have so much love for just the creativity of product development. And I admit, I was like, gosh, this is not technically as complicated. It's nowhere near as complicated as things I've worked in. But I kept coming back to like, no, this is right. Like I can tell it's right. So I guess I would also ask people like trust your gut. Trust your gut,
hmm
especially when your gut is focused on customer either customer success, customer delight, whatever words or terms you use. That is what should be driving your process, not all of the articles and advice that you get
Yeah.
about what you should be doing.
Absolutely. Great words to kind of
Yeah.
close out on. Well,
Yeah.
I want to put your website up on the screen for a second. I know you alluded to a little earlier in the pod that you guys are about to do a public launch. Can you tell us a bit more about that,
Yes.
and where's a good place to
Yeah.
like follow along? Are people going to be able to sign up on the website?
Absolutely. Well, our website is www.getcareerstrong.com. Thank you for showing it here. And we will be launching, and you can also,
Oh,
this
may
is
have lost
Susan
you for a
Morrow.
second. Say it
Oh,
one more time, Susan. You said you can also what?
site is getcareerstrong.com. And then you can also connect via LinkedIn. As you would imagine, a lot of conversations happen on LinkedIn about career. So you can connect to me through LinkedIn. When we announce next week, we'll first be announcing a 90-minute, $99 workshop that uses the system. And then
Nice.
shortly, we're building our wait list. And after early next year, probably February, we'll start our 6-week accelerator programs. And all the
Awesome.
information is on the website. And feel free
That
to DM me too. Like I love talking with people about product development. I was so thrilled to get the invite to come talk to you. I was like, yes, we built a ship. Because that's what
yes.
we do. So yeah, I definitely put that invitation out to folks. If you ever want to talk about this and what you care about, I'm always really interested, and I love helping founders. Love it.
Well, yeah, I'll double down on that, everyone. When you get an offer like that to talk to a founder with the kind of experience that Susan has, like these are the kind of, people wonder, like, how did you end up in a job here or there? A lot of it is networking. And so if you have an
Yeah.
opportunity to talk to someone who's willing to share their time and just be someone in your corner, even if it's, a quick conversation or a little bit of support over LinkedIn, maybe it'll end up being an intro to an opportunity in the future. So definitely take advantage of that. And Susan, really appreciate you being generous with your time and sharing so much
Absolutely.
about your process and your journey in building Get Career Strong. So looking forward to the launch and the workshop that's coming up soon. And
Yeah,
thanks again for coming on, and definitely looking forward to keeping in touch.
absolutely. Thanks so much, Tyler.
Of course. Thanks, Susan. Bye now.
Thanks.